proceed.
All right.
Okay. Someone can record it, please. Okay. Thank you, Miss Ed. All right. Good day to everyone and welcome to our panel discussion today, titled Substance Abuse Among Young Adults, Pleasure Seeking or Psychological Escape. As we dive into this critical issue, it is vital to ground ourselves in current realities. According to data from the National Anti-Drugs Agency, AADK, published in the New Straits Times, youth drug cases topped a staggering 78,000 in just the first half of 2025. What is particularly eye-opening is how this data maps onto our team today. Home Minister Datuk Sri Saifuddin Ismail highlighted findings showing that curiosity, which aligns closely with pleasure-seeking and thrill-seeking, was the leading factor driving drug use at 30.1%. However, closely following right behind is stress at 20.9%, clearly pointing towards a desperate need for psychological escape. To help us dissect this complex ecosystem, we have a wonderful panel of experts with us today. Let us welcome our first panelist, Muhammad Razam bin Mat Rosli, who will be unpacking the complex interconnected risk ecosystem from family dynamics to individual developmental pressure that drives young adults to substance abuse. Muhammad Razam.
Okay. Hi and good morning, everyone. And thank you to the moderator, Ms. Khairin. So today I would like to share the key finding of a comprehensive narrative review published in Curious, which looked like a major risk factor contributing to a substance abuse among young adults. When we look at this issue, it is easy to think that the drug or alcohol abuse as a poor personal choice. However, this study clearly showed the substance abuse is actually a result of a complex, overlapping ecosystem of pressure. To make sense it all, the research broke this risk down to three main categories, which is family factor, individual factor, and environmental influence. All right, let us begin with the family, which is the foundational environment for any young person. The review notes that genetics play a massive role. Young adults with a family history of addiction are biologically much more vulnerable to developing severe dependency issue with themselves. But beyond genetic, the emotional environment at the home is just as critical. The study found that the weak family bonds, such as a lack of emotional closeness, poor communication, and low parental supervision, leave young adults feeling unsupported. And furthermore, deep psychological scar from childhood trauma, such as a physical or emotional abuse and neglect, acts such a major trigger. And this young adult grow up, they often use substance to block out their early pain, and also have to consider parental attitude. If a young person feel like their parent are indifferent to or permissive of drinking and smoking, and they are more likely to experience. And moving on to the second one, which is individual level, which is the transition into the young adulthood, specifically between the age of 18 and 25, bring a unique and heavy pressure. One of them is leading highlighted in the study is intense academic stress. The overwhelming pressure to succeed in college or university caused many students to turn up to drug or alcohol just to cope with the anxiety or to stay awake for study. This ties closely with the mental health. Young adult is suffering from conditions like depression, anxiety, or ADHD very frequently use substance as a form of self-medication to numb their symptom because they lack of healthy coping mechanism. This review also point out the hidden biological risk. Genetic variation actually change how people brain respond to pleasure, making them naturally more prone to addiction. And last but not least, let us look at the social environment factor, which often act as the final trigger. Among these, peer pressure is arguably the strongest predictor at all. At this age, the desire to fit in, follow the social norm, and accepted by a friend group is incredibly powerful. If a young adult social circle normalize a drug or alcohol use, the pressure is confirmed is hard to resist. This social pressure is worse by availability. If a young person live in the area where the substance are cheap and easy to get, or if they are constantly bombarded by media and advertisement that glamorize substance use, the barrier is entry drops significantly. So, in conclusion, what is this review tell us as the panel are very clear. We cannot solve the problem of substance abuse among a young adult by looking at it through a single lens. It is a combination of vulnerable family background, internal mental health struggle, and intense social and environmental factor. Therefore, if we want to build an effective prevention and support system, our strategy must address to the entire web of challenge together. So thank you so much, and I pass it to the moderator.
All right, thank you so much, Zen. To summarize your brilliant insights, you reminded us that substance abuse is never an isolated choice, but rather the result of a deeply interconnected ecosystem. You highlighted familiar risks like genetic baseline vulnerabilities and childhood traumas. You noted individual pressures faced by young adults aged 18 to 25, such as academic stress and self medicating for disorders like anxiety or ADHD. And finally, you pointed out external triggers like peer conformity and easy access, emphasizing that our interventions must move away from purely punitive measures to address these overlapping root pressures. Now, let's look at the second panelist, which is Shamimi Aliana Jiha binti Rosdi, who will talk about the effects of substance abuse among young adults. Would you mind saying hi first, Shamimi Alia?
Hi.
Hi.
Okay. Okay. So now, first, thank you, moderator, Miss Karin. So now I will talk about the effect of substance abuse among young adults. Personally, I believe that substance abuse among young adults brings several negative effects, particularly towards their academic performance and future career prospects. Many young adults who struggle with substance abuse often experience a decline in cognitive functions, leading to poor concentration, memory loss, and a lack of motivation. So, when these cognitive abilities are impaired, individuals may start skipping classes, failing their exam, or even dropping out of university. Because of that, I think one of the most alarming long-term effects is the destruction of their career opportunities. Young adults who should be building a bright future might find themselves unable to secure stable jobs or maintain professional relationships due to their addiction. When people lose their career and academic path, it creates a domino effect that ruins their quality of life. Besides that, the effects of substance abuse also heavily impact their physical and mental health. For example, long substance abuse can cause chronic health issues such as liver damage, cardiovascular diseases, or several mental health disorders like anxiety and depression. I also believe that the strain it puts on social and family relationships is equally devastating. Sometimes individuals who are addicted tend to isolate themselves or exhibit aggressive behaviors, which eventually break the trust and support from their loved ones. Disconnected from family and friends, these individuals are left feeling completely isolated, making it even harder for them to break free from this cycle. Finally, the economic burden on both the individual and their family cannot be ignored as financial resources are wasted to fund the addiction or pay for medical treatments. So overall, if substance abuse is left unaddressed, its effects do not only ruin the individual health, but they also destroy their academic future, damage their relationships, and limit their potential in life. That's all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Shamimi. You fo- Your focus brought to light the devastating reality of what happens when these
Mm-mm.
substances take hold. You illustrated how impaired cognitive functions heavily disrupt academic and career prospects, causing a domino effect that ruins an individual quality of life. You also highlighted the severe toll on physical and mental health, alongside the heartbreaking breakdown of trust within family relationships. Ultimately, you emphasized the compounding financial and social isolation, reminding us why leaving this issue unaddressed destroy a young person's entire potential. Now, we've looked at the effect and causes. We'll move on to the criteria of uh, people using this, having substance abuse as a young adult. Okay, the one that we will talk about this is Amir Izzat bin Muhammad Yusuf. Please welcome to the floor.
Thank you to our moderator and a very good day to everyone. So I would like to focus on the criteria of young adult entering substance abuse problem. So when we look at the rising issues of substance abuse among young adults, we are often quick to judge the behavior itself. But we want to align with the SDG 3, good health and well-being. We have to look past the surface. We must ask ourselves what exactly drives a young adult to take the first step. Is it reckless for is it reckless chase for a high, or is it silent for crap? Sorry, is it silent cry for help? Today, as a panelist, I want to unpack these distinct behavioral criteria that separate the pleasure seekers from the psychological escapists. So let's start with the first group, which is for the pleasure seekers. These are young adults who often been using substance out of curiosity, thrill seeking, or social pressure to achieve a sense of euphoria or a high. However, according to an insight from addiction expert like Richard Layton, this initial pursuit of pleasure quickly traps them in a dangerous cycle of tolerance. The defining criterion, the defining criterion for this group over time is actually pleasure anymore. It is survival. As their tolerance grow, they are no longer use the substance to feel good. They reach a point where they are using the substance just to feel normal and function on a daily basis. What started as a chase for a high become desperate attempt to avoid a low. And on the flip side, we have the psychological escapists. The criteria of these young adults are entirely different. They are looking for a thrill. They are running from the pain. From this group, sustain act as a temporary shield to numb emotional distress, anxiety, or a deeply rooted past trauma. The tragedy here is that while substance offer a fleeting moment of relief, they don't erase the trauma. In fact, this coping mechanism actively worsen their underlying psychological pain in the long run. They become trapped in a loop of masking a wound that desperately need to heal. So in a conclusion, based on the behavioral data and the progression of addiction, we can deduce that among most young adults are engaged in substance abuse through a combination of both pleasure seeking and a psychological escape, while ultimately merge into a single cycle of survival. While a young adult might cross the threshold out of a desire for pleasure seeking, the inevitable build-up of a chemical tolerance quickly transform their habit into a desperate psychological escape just to feel normal. Conversely, those who are begin to strictly as escapists to numb trauma find themselves trapped by the exact same physical dependency. Therefore, to achieve the target of the SDG 3, our intervention cannot simply punish the surface behavior. We must implement root cause intervention that address the specific psychological drivers, safeguarding both the mental and the future of young adult demographic. So thank you. That's all from me.
All right, thank you, Amir Izzat. You beautifully aligned your insights with SDG 3, good health and well being, by breaking down the specific behavioral criteria of users. You explained that pleasure seekers might start out of curiosity or thrill, but chemical tolerance quickly forces them into a state of survival just to feel normal. On the other hand, psychological escapists use substances to numb trauma, which unfortunately only worsens their pain in the long run. Your final takeaway is powerful. Pleasure seeking and escape eventually merge into the exact same trap of physical dependency, meaning our interventions must address these deep root causes. Now, to our last panelist, Amirul Aifan bin Johari, who will talk about the solutions to stop this substance abuse among young adults. Please, welcome to the floor.
All right. Thank you, moderator. Before I talk about the solutions, I think we first need to understand what actually drives young adults towards substance abuse. While some may argue that it's mainly for pleasure or enjoyment, I personally believe that many young adults use substance as a form of escape from the pressure and the challenges they face in daily life. Many young adults today face different challenges such as academic pressure, financial problems, families, conflicts, and stress about their future. When these problems become overwhelming, some individuals may turn to substance as a way to escape from their emotions and difficulties, even if only temporary. Because of that, I think one of the most important solution is improving access to mental health support. Young adults should feel comfortable seeking help through counseling services or talking to trusted individuals when they are struggling. When people have healthier way to manage stress, they are less likely to rely on substances. Besides that, awareness programs should focus not only on the dangers of substance abuse, but also on healthy coping strategies. For example, people um, be encouraged. Young people can be encouraged to manage stress through exercise, hobbies, volunteering activities, or spending time with supportive friends and family members. I also believe that having a strong support system is very important. Sometimes people who are experiencing emotional difficulties simply need someone who willing to listen and understand them. Support from family, teacher, and the community can help prevent individuals from feeling isolated and turning to substances. Finally, for those who are already struggling with substance abuse, rehabilitation and continuous support are essential. Recovery takes time, and individuals should be encouraged to seek help rather than being judged for their mistakes. So overall, if substance abuse is viewed as a form of psychological escape, then the solution is not only to stop the behavior itself, but also to address the emotional and psychological challenges that lead people toward it in the first place. That's all for me. Thank you.
Right, thank you, Amiru. You firmly grounded our discussion in the perspective of psychological escape, noting that modern pressures, academic, financial, and relational drive young adults to seek a temporary exit from overwhelming emotions. Because of this, you offered actionable solutions centered on improving mental health access and teaching healthy coping strategies like hobbies and exercise. You reminded us of the power of a strong support system from family, lecturers, and peers to prevent isolations. Most importantly, you called for a shift towards non judgmental rehabilitation, reminding us that we must address the emotional wounds driving the behavior rather than just punishing the behavior itself. Now, as we will only have 5 minutes left, looking at all the points raised from the 78,000 cases in our headlines to the intricate cycle of pleasure turning into survival, it is clear that substance abuse is a multifaceted crisis. It starts as a choice or a coping mechanism, but quickly becomes a prison. I would now like to open the floor to our panelists for further discussion, if have any.
Excuse me, sorry for the interruption. I have a question for Mr. Amizad. So, just now you are talking about the criteria of people who are engaged in substance abuse. So, my question is this: practically speaking, if we find ourselves encountering a young adult or peers who exhibit this very criteria, whether they are trapped in a cycle of tolerance or clearly using substance as emotional shield, what should be our immediate first course of action? How do we approach them safely and effectively without driving them further into hiding? Thank you.
Thank you to my fellow panelists for a very practical and a crucial question, Muhammad Razan. So, if we recognize these criteria in someone close to us, our immediate first action must be to establish a non-judgmental, safe space to communicate, followed by a linking them to a professional support. Because the criteria for both type of substance abuse are rooted in deep psychological drivers. Whether it's running from the trauma or struggling with a chemical dependency, Confronting them with a judgment or anger will only backfire. It forces them deeper into their protective shell. Therefore, our first two steps involve two core action. Sorry. So, first we can approach with empathy, not accusation. Instead of saying you have a problem, we should focus on their well-being by saying, I noticed that you've been going through a lot lately. I'm here for you. We must address the pain. We must address the pain they are escaping from rather than just attacking the substance use itself. Second, immediate connection to professional helps. As a peer or a family members, we are not equipped to treat addiction. Our role is to act as a bridge. The moment they open up, we must immediately guide them toward professional counselor, addiction therapists, or healthcare service that align with the SDG 3 target. In short, the first step is to shift our approach from intervention by policing to intervention by care and professional referral. That's all from me. Thank you for the question, Mama Razak.
Right,
Right.
Amir. Thank you. I completely agree with your emphasis of shifting from policing to care. So thank you for clarifying that.
All right. Since we
Okay.
only have 1 minute, does anyone else have a addition?
I have last questions for our panelists, Mr. Amirul. So from what you just shared before, I want to ask you, do you think that universities have done enough to address substance abuse among young adults? That's my question.
Thank you so much for the question, Miss Shamimi. Um, I agree that peer pressure is an important factor in substance abuse. However, in my opinion, peer pressure is often trigger rather than root causes. Sorry. In my opinion, university have taken positive steps by providing counseling services, awareness campaign, and student support programs. However, I think more can still be done to ensure the students are aware of and comfortable accessing these services. Some students may hesitate to seek help because they fear being judged or do not know where to get support. Therefore, university should continue creating a more supportive environment where students feel safe discussing their mental health and personal challenges before this issue lead to substance abuse. That's what I think, Miss Shamimi.
I see, and I also agree with your statement that university should create more supportive environment that can make students feel more safe for their mental health. Thank you for the answer.
All right. Thank you for all the panelists for the insights. Ultimately, to achieve SDG 3 good health and well-being, our approach must change. As outlined in Solutions to Substance Abuse, we cannot simply punish the behavior. We must build stronger support system through family lectures and accessible mental health counseling to help the emotional challenges that lead young adults to escape in the first place. Thank you to our panels for their deep insights, and thank you to the audience for your time, and thank you to our VIP, Miss Nan, sorry, to our VIP, Miss Nani Rahayu binti Salihuddin. Right, that's all from us. Thank you.